Good morning, career advancers, high achievers, leaders, and professionals to the Optimized Career Solutions YouTube channel. I'm Kara Dennison, and we are wrapping up October's theme of interviews. And since Halloween wraps up October, we are talking about something scary when it comes to interviews, which is the salary discussion. And it's a two-parter this day on this YouTube video. We're also going to be talking about overcoming objections, which are two of the scariest things when it comes to interviews. And if you've made it this far in your job search in the hiring process and you've come to just about the end of the interview process, you've probably faced an objection or two. And we want to make sure that if this comes up in your interview, that you can handle objections like a pro, like it's no big deal, and you do it with confidence, and you're prepared to handle those salary questions in order to set yourself up for success to negotiate that offer that's coming your way. So, like I said, today we are navigating salary discussions and overcoming objections with poise. Let's go ahead and get started. Money talks, but so does confidence. And today we're going to uncover the art of discussing salary and mastering objections, ensuring that you're both valued and compensated accordingly. So negotiating salary isn't just about monetary compensation, right? It reflects your professional value and ensures long-term satisfaction. One of the things that I want to make sure that we keep in mind when it comes to negotiating your compensation package is a lot of times people get so hung up on that salary, that base salary, that number. But when you think about that entire compensation package, there's a lot that gets involved with that. Could be a bonus structure, could be a sign-on bonus, it could be equity and stock options, PTO, your health insurance, your dental insurance, your maternity and paternity leave, all of those things, relocation if you need it, a remote work stipend, holiday pay. All of those things are things that your company is giving you in exchange for the work that you're going to be providing and the time that you're spending there. And a Glassdoor survey found that 59% of employees accepted their salary offer without negotiation. Meanwhile, studies indicate that those who don't negotiate their salary can lose over $600,000 in earnings over their career. So, what does this tell us? What this tells me is that the answer is always going to be no if you don't ask, right? After negotiating over $12 million in salary increases with my clients through my executive coaching programs, what I have learned, and after doing this with thousands of people, I have only ever had the offer pulled twice. Right? It is a very rare thing that has ever happened for my clients. And in both of those situations, looking back, it was a gift that that offer was pulled, because in the end, those two individuals were very grateful they ended up not working at those companies that initially offered those offers. And we would have negotiated again because those offers initially were not fair. So what I always am going to tell you is, if the initial offer is not fair, then please go ahead and negotiate. Now, my caveat here is, at times, if you have gone through this entire hiring process, you have advocated for yourself, you have done it confidently, you have built rapport, you have showcased your impact throughout each individual interview, you have really garnered that buy-in each and every step of the way, and you have a really good advocate at a recruiter, at times they can work with you and they might present the best, fairest offer at the first time, and you don't need to negotiate. But most of the time, you're going to want to negotiate, and we're going to want to make sure that you are doing it correctly. It's going to start at that very first recruiter screen when they ask you, what are your salary requirements, or what are you looking for in terms of compensation, right? At that stage, what I want you to say is, and I think we went over this in the Recruiter Screen podcast, which of course is up on this YouTube channel. Please feel free to check it out on the playlist, Career Advancement Academy playlist. I want you to say, Hey, that's a really great question. Unfortunately, I'd love to really find out from that hiring manager what they're really looking for in that role, and I'm not sure what that is at this moment. I would love to circle back with you after I do that, but in the meantime, can you tell me what the range is that you have budgeted for this role? Now, 8 to 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you the range that they have budgeted for the role. When they don't give you, or if they don't, and then they push back on you, at that point, I want you to be prepared. Don't walk into an interview not knowing what you want to be compensated for, or having a completely inflated idea of what you want to be compensated for. If you're going in for a role that typically pays around $100,000 to $120,000 and you go in asking for 250, you're definitely not going to go to the next stage, right? So I want you to have three numbers in mind. The first number, that number is going to be your base minimum. That is going to be the minimum amount that you will accept to leave your current job, right? That's going to cover your bills. You're going to make sure that you have enough to pay all of your bills and have enough to little sock away at the end so that you're not constantly living in this paycheck to paycheck mode, right? And I'm hoping that's at least a lateral move to where you are. If you are hoping to leave a very toxic situation and you just need enough to get out, that needs to be at least a lateral move. But ideally, it's going to be at least about 5 to 10% more of what you're making, right? That's going to be the minimum amount. Now, that middle range is where you're going to be excited, right? Like this is going to be, hey, a juicy increase. You're excited, but this is really what you're aiming for. And then that maximum number is going to be, this is the number you write home to mama about. I'm excited. I just got a good bump in my pay. This is what I'm really aiming for. And this is probably going to be a step up from what you're doing right now. That's going to be your range. And most likely that's going to be a fairly large range, but this is the range that you're going to have in mind. So when that recruiter is kind of pushing and asking, what is the range that you have, and really making sure that they get it from you, they might play some tricks like, I can't move you on until I get your range, unfortunately, due to policy or whatever. You have a range in mind that's wide enough that you feel comfortable and confident in, that you know your worth and you are not backing down from. And that minimum you are not compromising on, and that maximum you'd be really, really happy with. Okay. So, and hopefully that mid-range is what you're going to be hopefully landing on and you'd still be very happy with. But also when you give that range or ask for it, what you're going to say is, my range is between X and Y. But again, what I'm really looking for is a mutually beneficial fit, a win-win situation. And I need to speak to that hiring manager to find out what they're really looking for in this role. And for me, the total compensation really includes the base salary, bonuses, and your benefits package. I'd love to circle back and find out a little bit more about the role and talk to you after we do that. Is that something that would be okay with you? Now, objections are going to be coming up, and we'll talk a little bit about negotiating the offer at the end of this video. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to stay tuned. Objections are going to come up, and objections are these things, right, that hiring managers or recruiters or decision makers are looking for to get you out of that hiring process, right? They're looking for these red flags that are going to kick you out so that they can narrow the pool down to their final candidate, right? So research has shown that interviewers make judgments very quickly. Again, they're interviewing a lot of people, and whenever they can see a red flag or something kind of pops up in their mind, they're going to make that judgment and move on very quickly. So overcoming objections requires immediate, precise, and confidence-filled responses. So when you're facing an objection, first, what I always recommend is we acknowledge it. We're just going to acknowledge it. Then we pivot by highlighting a relevant experience or skill that demonstrates your capabilities, right? An example might say, we're really looking for someone with more experience in this one software. So let's say Salesforce, right? Or a CRM system. What you might say is, hey, I completely understand why you would want someone with Salesforce experience. That makes sense. That's what your team uses. The reason why you're doing that is because you want to put yourself on the same side of the table of the interviewer when it comes to a potential disagreement, right? Because when you're putting yourself on contrasting sides, all of a sudden they're going to see you as opposition and you're going to start getting in this conflict sort of mode. We don't want that. We want to be like, hey, yeah, I agree with you. And they're going to be like, oh, okay, I don't have anything to fight with you about. You agree with me. This is where you're going to drop that. Here's why that's not that big of a deal. This situation, hey, we really need someone with more Salesforce experience. Hey, I completely understand. You need someone with Salesforce experience because you have a team that uses Salesforce. However, I have used this other competing software for 5 to 10 plus years. And from what I've understand, I've done some research on Salesforce, is it's very similar. And I was actually the one that implemented this other software. I have complete confidence that you give me a week in Salesforce, plus the training that I've already taken on Salesforce, and I'll be able to catch up in no time. Plus, from what I understand from our conversation is that you're really looking for someone to drive revenue and lead your team in being the best sales guys that you have in order to meet your end of year goals. And from my track record of success, what I have done is built up teams in order to land net new revenues, clients, and meet these types of goals and exceed them like I have at this company and this company. And so if you're really looking for someone to be a Salesforce expert, unfortunately, that's not me. But if you're looking for someone to drive revenue and lead your team, I'll be happy to take some more extra courses on Salesforce and catch up. That's not a problem. But what I'm really hearing is you're looking for someone to lead that team, and that's what I can bring to the table. See how we kind of negate that objection as being not that really big of a deal? You can do that, and you're showing similar transferable skills that will be able to help supplement that objection that they have, right? Now, when you're overcoming those objections, you have to say it with confidence, right? Because for them, they're building up, and in this example, Salesforce, needing to know Salesforce as something really big, right, in their head. But for you, you know that's not that big of a deal. What they're really needing is someone to lead the team and execute on goals. And Salesforce is just a tool, right? It's not the actual job. It's a tool to get the job done. What you need is to have that confidence, not only in yourself, but to show them that you can get it done. And if you're sitting there, oh, I understand Salesforce. I don't have any experience in Salesforce, but I do know this other CRM, and I think it's kind of similar to Salesforce. If you need someone who does know Salesforce, I don't, but I do know how to sell, and I've led teams to sell, and I know that that's kind of what we were talking about before, but you're right, I don't have Salesforce. See the difference, right? If that person is really in their mind concerned about Salesforce, because maybe they just went through a whole implementation and it cost a lot of money, and you're also unsure about it, then it's just gonna get bigger and bigger in their mind. But if you confidently say, yeah, I completely understand, that's a big deal. However, it's not that big of a deal because your bigger deal is bringing in more money, right? And that's something that I'm excellent at. And I can use tools because I've used multiple tools, and I can learn yours in a week, no problem. All of a sudden, you've just taken control of the situation, calmed their nerves, and assured them that it's not that big of a deal. You've de-escalated the situation. And that's what we need to do in order to overcome objections. Albert Mehrabian, a professor of psychology at UCLA, did some research and came to the conclusion that 38% of communication is voice and tone. 55% is body language, and only 7% is the actual word. So this is really emphasizes how important it is when it comes to objections to be confident. Relax your body language and overcome those objections confidently. How can we get better at this? Well, role playing is really going to be a big way. And this is what we do with our clients is we do interview prep, right? Is we ask them, what are some of those objections you're worried about? Do you know Salesforce? Okay, what are we going to say? So that when it comes up, it's not the first time saying it. It's like a practice rehearsal, right? And so you can do this with your friends or your families or trusted colleagues of what would I say if I were asked this in a meeting or an interview? And you can rehearse that confidently. That's something that I would absolutely recommend when it comes to overcoming objections, and even that salary question, because that's a nerve-wracking question to be like, I'm not going to give up my number. You give me yours, right? So you can watch this video back, practice in the mirror. You can practice recording yourself, or you can practice it with your friends or family too. Now, when it comes to negotiating your offer, I highly recommend giving it a try. Here are some things to keep in mind too, is if you get a no, you can also negotiate some other things like additional PTO or benefits or holiday or bonus or stock or anything like that, right? So remember that a lot of times people keep in mind just that number, and your whole comp package is everything that you get. When you negotiate, I always like to try and negotiate as a win-win for both parties, right? I'm coming in to do a job for you. I'm going to make an impact. Remember all of the great things that I talked about in the interview about how I'm going to make an impact for you. Let's remember that, right? But we also want to make sure that we're doing it from a collaborative approach. So when you are sending that negotiation email, I always recommend doing it via email so that the recruiter and everything can have it in writing, and they can go and get approvals from everyone, and then you can reconnect via phone once they have those updated numbers. But what I always recommend is just saying, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very excited to join the team. When it comes to this offer, I don't want compensation to stand in the way from an amazing opportunity. However, what can we do to get this base salary number closer to X, right? When I phrase it that way, I don't want compensation to stand in the way of a great opportunity. However, what can we do to get the number closer to this? It's again putting us on the same side of the table. I don't want it to stand in the way, which means I'm still very interested in this job. I'm very excited, like I said, and it shows that you're open to negotiate and potentially negotiate other things if they can't come back with a different number. And what can we do? It's giving that language of what can we do? How can we solve this problem together? Instead of, I don't want this, I need this. I need this is more like, that type of language, and people can get defensive and they're less likely to do things for you. When you come at things with a collaborative approach, people are more willing to help, right? So that's something that I always like to include when it comes to salary negotiation, is to be in a collaborative mindset here. When it comes to these interviews, which I'm really excited about, that we had such a great month of interview tips. If you ever are struggling with interviews, I highly recommend watch all of these incredible videos from this month, or you can always purchase our interview prep set course that we have with our interview prep guide, as well as our bonus salary negotiation scripts, templates, guides, and videos. We absolutely have that at www.optimizecareers.com. But until then, go forth and conquer those interviews with self-assured confidence and elegance. And go and tell me in the comments how your last interview went and what stood out to you from this video. What are some objections that have come up for you in an interview, and how did you overcome? Until then, be great, have a great week, and I'll see you next week.